Hello, everybody. We are going to be talking about A Cinderella Story, A Christmas Wish. I'm Katie.
And I'm Hannah. And let's get straight into it.
Let's go.
Ha 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 ha. We review movies.
Alright, so for the basic Cinderella story, we've got our Cinderella, a girl that's down on her luck looking for a happily ever after. She usually lives with her stepfamily who treats her like a slave, but there's some sort of big event where she can meet her Prince Charming and overcome her circumstances. The plans to go to the big event are usually thwarted by her stepfamily, but she has a fairy godmother who will help her go to the big event. At the big event, the prince will fall in love with her, but her stepfamily will attempt to stop her. In the end, she overcomes them and gets her happily ever after.
The basic components of A Cinderella Story is first our Cinderella, a stepfamily, a fairy godmother, a Prince Charming, a dumb animal, glass slippers, some big event or ball of some kind, and Cinderella has an extra dream associated with the prince.
For this version of Cinderella, there are a couple things that make it different than the other ones. First of all, it is based during Christmas, so our ball is not simply a ball, it is a dance on Christmas Eve. And the prince is a hot guy who is also rich, and his dad is the one throwing the ball.
He has billions of dollars from Daddy.
Billion with a B?
Our Cinderella also wants to be a singer and a songwriter.
Along with basically being a slave to her family, doing the housekeeping, the chores, etc., this Cinderella has a job. And where does she work at, guys? Well, it's called Santaland because it's a Christmas movie. At Santaland, she works with her best friend. Her best friend is the fairy godmother character in this story. But you know who also works at Santaland? The prince! And you know who owns Santaland? The prince's father! Whoa! Last but not least, the glass slipper is now a snow globe.
Alright, first off, let's talk about some good things about the movie.
It's a short list, I'll tell you that.
The dog, we thought he was really cute with his little wheelchair. And then we also liked that she had another job, even though it was at Santaland, which is kind of a weird job where she's singing and dancing, and she does get to make her own music and perform it there.
Yeah, she also has friends, like she's able to leave the house. She isn't stuck in the house, which that's interesting. I like that aspect of it.
And so these things kind of make it new to us. Something else that was kind of new was that Cinderella's dad is friends with the rich dad guy.
It was an interesting thought, but they didn't expand on it quite as much. We didn't really get to know the dad character. We also didn't really get to know about the billionaire guy because all we knew about him was that he had money.
I guess it's a good thing I'm a billionaire.
And that is billion with a B.
Now for all the things we didn't like about this.
A much longer list.
Much longer list.
So first of all, we wanted to talk about the Christmas aspect of the movie. Same story could have happened at a different time of year, and it would be no different. It felt like the only reason to have Christmas was to have their stupid Santaland, but it didn't feel like Christmas to me.
What if it actually took place during Halloween? Wouldn't that make sense with like the costumes that people wore, like a Halloween land?
Yeah, that would work better, I think. Because something we felt like didn't fully work is the fact that their costumes were not costumey enough. Like, they didn't cover up who they were. She's not supposed to realize the prince is the hot guy because he's in his Santa costume, which I could still tell it was him, and his voice was the same. And then she looks exactly the same, just with pink hair and some elf ears.
But for some reason, no one can recognize her.
And she can't recognize him.
It makes no sense. I still don't know why that was added in there.
But if it had been Halloween, their full faces could have been covered. They could have weird voices because of the character they're playing. Or they might have like weird teeth in their mouths or something.
Like, imagine if they worked at a haunted house. I'm just wanting a Halloween Cinderella movie.
It felt like it was just a money grab. Like, we can come out with this at Christmas, it'll be Cinderella, everybody's gonna want to watch it.
It's just lazy writing. That's all this is.
The biggest reason we felt like it didn't really work as Christmas is it just didn't feel like it had a Christmas message to it.
No, I felt like It's a Wonderful Life, having it take place at Christmas time, that message of like kind of being grateful for what you have and people rallying together to help the main character out, it was so much more meaningful like with Christmas because that theme went along with it. Here, there was no theme, there was no message, there wasn't any payout. It just was so underwhelming. Now on to the prince.
He's the Santa guy. He's just dressed as Santa. We kind of already talked about this for a second, that his like costume didn't really work, but he's also like a teenage boy. Like, I don't know who has a teenage boy be their Santa in their Santa land, especially like their own son. Like, I didn't feel like that worked. Like, I see that maybe they think the beard would hide who he is.
Yeah, it's actually right when he takes his beard off. It's like she sees like that jawline and she's like, oh, I think I know who you are.
The jawline.
I guess jawlines are like indicators of who a person is. So guys, if you're trying to like be in disguise, just cover up that jawline with like a fake beard or something.
Like, they tried to make him like a band manager.
But we don't ever see it. We see him on the phone for like 1 second.
And once again, we're pretty sure he's a teenager. So the fact that he's managing bands as a teenager and supposed to be like really successful at it, we just thought was kind of off.
Come on, you didn't think I knew about your bands?
The prince's friends are these horrible people that are so rude, and one of the plot points is that they rip Cinderella a new one, and so we just thought it was weird that he has these like horrible friends.
Well, also, like, why would the friends diss against Cinderella, like, if they saw her, like, she looks like one of them? But also, like, they're just dissing on her because she's poor. There's, like, literally no backstory to these characters. There's no nuances to them. The Prince character is supposed to be nice and likable, and so it's confusing why he's with horrible people. He just has horrible friends for a reason, so it makes Cinderella look so much better, which I thought was stupid.
Something else we want to talk about is her stepfamily. There were a couple things that we had issues with. We think that the writers tried so hard to make her stepsisters and her stepmother look like these horrible, lazy people who are evil. Like, they hate the dog in the wheelchair. Like, they just pushed it too far, we thought.
First of all, who could hate the dog in the wheelchair? They try to make them heartless, so it just makes Cinderella look just as much better and more virtuous, and like you feel sorry for her. But it comes a point where it's like, why are they this way? There's nothing nuance about them. They didn't really get into these characters.
We also wanted to know, if the dad was such a good guy, why would he marry this horrible person?
Of course, they don't really explain it in the like original fairy tale story.
Mm-mm.
But during that time, when you're a single guy, like, it is acceptable for you to, like, have a wife. And, like, I think he wanted a mother for his daughter. But at least that's kind of briefly explained. And this, there's, like, no background. How old are these characters? If they are in high school, why aren't they in school? I know it takes place during Christmas time. But there's nothing, like, said about, like, the routine of, like, her going to school. We're just confused because they all kind of look college age, but they're not in college.
Yeah, we're assuming they're in high school because they talk about her not being 18 to get her inheritance. And we think her stepsisters are the same age and the prince, like, but we don't think that they're in college or college age.
They couldn't be in college.
I think it should be. Something else is, over the amount of time, like, it's made obvious that they don't have each other's phone numbers. They don't text each other like the prince and Cinderella, which wouldn't be a big issue, but he invites her to the ball and gives her an invitation, but they don't have each other's phone numbers, and at one point, the only way he can see her is if he hires her out over a, like, they call them Santagrams, where she
That
comes
sounded
and
so
sings at his
wrong.
house.
Hire her out. Like, she's an escort.
Basically. Just kidding.
Kind of. No, she sings, like, these, like, sing-a-gram things or whatever.
In her elf costume. But that's the only way he can see her, and so, like, we were thinking in today's day they would at least have each other's phone numbers.
Especially with high schoolers, and they talk about, like, Instagram and, like, YouTube and this. Like, they don't interact at all, like, using those, like, social media platforms. Like, the one stepsister's supposed to vlog and stuff like that. We don't see anything else about that. It was weak, man. I'm not happy.
And they text sideways, like their phone is horizontal.
Who texts sideways?
We just didn't love the music.
No.
Like, for the music being such a big part of it and her being such an amazing songwriter, we thought it wasn't very good, and most of her stuff was auto-tuned, and when it wasn't, she wasn't on pitch. Like,
No, it's so clear, especially, I mean, at the beginning, like, the audio mixing wasn't quite as bad, but when you got to that final, like, number where she sings out to all the people at the ball,
which
like,
is supposed to be the big number.
the big number, that song is auto-tuned to death, and it's so obvious.
So tell me, why does everybody
I can't listen to it. I have to literally mute the movie because it's just so bad. It's so obvious, and you can tell that this like the actress couldn't really hit those notes, or she couldn't be quite on pitch. I don't know what it was, but it was just so obvious. It was horrible, and it was very distracting. And also, when you add like music, it has to make sense in the world of what you're trying to tell. Like with musicals, it's perfectly acceptable when they establish that people can sing out randomly. Like, that's just part of their world. That's part of telling the story. With this, they have like a purpose every time she sings. It's either like she's practicing a song or she's performing. But then they have a random musical burst out moment with her and the prince character that didn't make sense, especially with how they set up where all the music comes. It made no sense. It's like, I would get it if like it was something that she imagined or daydreamed like she did in the beginning of the movie. It's supposed to build chemistry, but at the same time though, like, I thought that was sort of a weak attempt just to build chemistry with them. Like, she kept saying like these weird innuendos while he was in the Santa suit. Weird sexual stuff. I'm like, okay, but it was like right when he was wearing like the Santa costume. I'm like, does she have like a Santa fetish or something?
Maybe.
It would be funny if like she saw exactly who it was and she wasn't attracted to him anymore outside of the Santa suit.
That'd make it better.
That would actually make it 1,000 times like better. I would be like, oh my gosh, like this is actually kind of interesting. Like, she really has like daddy issues. She's very bland. That's the number one note about her. Very bland. She doesn't ever develop. She doesn't go through any character development. She doesn't change over time. And even in the moment where like it's her breaking point, it's her lowest moment where she feels like she's lost everything, she's only sad for like, what, 10 seconds? Maybe less than that. And then quickly, like, oh, I'm okay. I'm just going to go to the ball and clear my name and sing a song and everything will be all right. I'll get the rich dad to give me billions of dollars so I can live away from my evil stepmother that stole all my money and used all of it up. It just was like, this character didn't develop or grow. I think she just remained the same throughout the whole entire movie. And that's not interesting to watch. I think Cinderella is dynamic because, like, you do see her struggle throughout most of the movie. And when she gains the strength to fight for what she wants, like, it's satisfying. In this, I didn't feel anything.
I think that she didn't have to fight very hard to get up that courage to speak up against her stepmother and stepsisters. She was doing that the whole time. Like, she would always sass them back. So it didn't feel like it was a big thing to do it at the end.
Like, she could easily leave.
I think the biggest thing they held against her was just that they were using all of her dad's money, wouldn't let her have it.
But then that quickly got resolved at the end. When it happened, it wasn't like her being relieved or anything. It was just like, okay, good. Even though Cinderella like has the fairy godmother character that helps her get the dress and all of that type of stuff, but it's like Cinderella really like lost everything, and when she had it, like, it didn't even stick with her forever. It like disappeared at midnight. True. And then she was back to like where she was again. And so she had to keep fighting, step up as her own, and get the prince as who she was.
In this one, we never had that moment because the ball happens at the same time as her, like, winning the prince over once and for all. Like, that's all at the same time. There's no, like, going home and, like, trying to figure it out after that.
This was honestly just a very lazy attempt at getting a quick cash grab. I'm sure that they made plenty of money because, like, Cinderella Story type of movie with ex-Disney Channel stars, and it takes place during Christmas. People will watch that on Netflix. People will, like, be interested enough to watch it. So that's basically, like, all that they cared about. And they didn't really dive too much into, like, what makes Cinderella, like, fascinating. I think they were kind of hoping that a Disney Channel star to be in it, that, you know, young girls would relate with that. But she wasn't relatable.
And they tried to make it new, but not in the right ways. Like, they tried to make it new with the Christmas fact, but that was mostly it.
Yeah, it made no sense, though.
Yeah. It just feels like a standard Cinderella story. Like, they didn't get very creative with it.
This is what we would do. That could probably make it better.
We already talked about how we think it would benefit from being a Halloween movie instead of a Christmas movie. How they could hide behind their masks a lot easier.
I love the idea of a haunted house.
Yeah.
Also, because it's, like, dark in there, and there could be different sections where they have to put their makeup on and stuff like that. I think it made more sense, especially, like, around that time where they really could be in disguise.
And he could literally look like a monster, and she falls for him anyway. I think that'd be a lot more interesting.
There's all sorts of, like, more interesting aspects you could put to this character. What these characters do and what they're passionate about. With him managing bands, why didn't we get to see him actually doing what he does? Why not interacting with the band, kind of seeing the gigs that he does? We see him on the phone briefly mention it for like a second, but then it's quickly pushed aside.
By having them in college, it would be a lot easier to show some of that stuff. He could be talking to people on campus about like him managing, and he could be the one getting bands to parties and stuff. And this like big party at the end, maybe he's managing a band that plays there.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to add a conflict with him, it's like maybe he's getting his degree in something totally opposite of what he's working towards right now. Maybe he wants to actually drop out of college and because he's finding success doing what he's doing, but his parents don't want him to do that, and they're helping him get his way through college. College age, it makes more sense. It's kind of like living more independently, being more like an adult and making those like adult decisions.
And I think the problem they ran into with this movie, with maybe putting him in college, is that she wouldn't have a reason to stay with her stepmother. Like, because I think the reason she stays is because she wants her father's inheritance. But if she's in college, she might not have that same thing. So we thought about it, and we think that maybe she stays because her stepsisters are younger than her. We don't think that the opposition of, like, the stepsisters wanting the prince is that big of a deal. We thought maybe her stepsisters are younger and her stepmother doesn't really take good care of them and she feels a responsibility to stay. I think that would be a lot more interesting.
Or maybe if they're not even stepsisters, but like
Real sisters.
Real sisters that she has to look after, and she doesn't want to leave them alone with the stepmom. The stepmom could inherit, like, you know, what the dad left behind to take care of the daughters and stuff like that. So there's, like, the responsibility where she is kind of taking care of everything.
And I think a Cinderella, like a standard one, would be hardworking enough to think, oh, she's going to take all my dad's money. I can just go work for more anyway because she's hardworking. So I don't think that motivation of staying for the money is big enough anyway.
Even, like, the dad character, maybe he didn't leave behind, like, that huge sum of money that apparently he left behind. Knowing more about the dad, a lot of times with these Cinderella movies, they have, like, a quick thing during the exposition part where they sort of give the backstory of, like, the dad character, how he met the stepmom and how he died, and it's, like, really quick. I think that's good to set that up. Or what if the dad recently died, like, maybe a year or 2 years ago? And maybe there's still a grieving process with Cinderella and the sisters, or even the stepmom. Maybe the stepmom resents Cinderella because Cinderella reminds her of the dad.
Yeah, I think that would be a really strong motivator for not liking her because she acts like him or she looks like him. I think that would be really hard when you're grieving to see someone who looks exactly like your loved one who died. And so that would be a stronger motivator to hate her than just that I'm evil and she's good.
Like, there can be all sorts of different things with insecurities and stuff like that. And also, if she's stuck with the little girls, of course, like, she's going to probably have this, like, weight on her and this burden. And that could be another motivator as well. There's definitely many possibilities to make this better.
And we want to know what you guys think would make it better. If you want to leave that down in the comments, just let us know, like, do you have any ideas?
Are our ideas good, or are some of them not that great?
You think it would flop just as much as this movie did?
Anyways, let us know. We'd love to interact with you. And I mean, I think it's good for, like, ideas help us become more creative and think more about things. So we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much.